All right.
Let's swap out one talent for another. Bring in Jeff.
Wow. You want to bring him in?
Jeff Darlington, ESPN NFL reporter, live from Norman for Broadway Baker's Pro Day. Jeff, we apologize for making you listen to Love It or Shove It.
There you go. So that was Bubba. How do you do, Jeff?
Yeah, I don't listen. I don't listen to you guys. I have no idea. I
Appreciate
just
you.
sit here in my own little world.
So we'll get
waiting
to
for you to say hello.
We'll get to Tiger in a minute, Jeff. But first, let's talk about where you are. You're in Norman, Oklahoma for Baker Mayfield's Pro Day. What are the expectations about what he's going to do?
Well, basically, Trey's just going to throw. He's happy enough with what he did at the Combine in regards to the other types of drills. Even though he didn't necessarily run exceptionally fast, I think Baker Mayfield knows that it's not about the 40-yard dash with him as much as it's about his shiftiness. So basically, we're going to see him out on the field throwing behind me, and that's in his wheelhouse. I mean, the accuracy was really solid at the Senior Bowl. Again, even probably better at the Combine, and he's not shy about this at all. He'll have his own receivers out here. I think he plans to put on a show for these scouts.
Jeff, hold on a minute now. I get where you're saying it's about shiftiness. It's about that 40 time a little bit. When you're making a pro comparison between Baker Mayfield and Russell Wilson, and Russell's escapability and avoiding the rush, and he ran a 4.55, and Baker ran 2.48s, that's a significant difference, as Chris can attest to, from escaping the rush and getting crushed by the rush.
That's fair. He also didn't run as fast as some of the other guys in this Combine, which is a little bit of a surprise to me. I just don't think that Baker is maybe the wrong decision. I just don't think he's putting that much stock in it in terms of, or maybe he just realizes that what he did at the Combine is where he belongs and doesn't think that he's going to do much better. I just, for whatever reason though, Baker feeling like his Combine numbers were just fine and he plans on just simply throwing out here.
Jeff, what's the general sense of where Baker Mayfield will land in this draft? Is he going to potentially be a top 10 pick, or is he one of those guys that could slide to the back half of the first round?
I personally think that his stock continues to rise through this offseason. And one of my favorite moments of this offseason, I was with Sean McVay out in Minnesota at the Super Bowl and ran into Baker Mayfield at an event and heard the way McVay was talking to Mayfield and essentially just gushing praise over him, saying, I got my ride or die with Jared Goff, but man, I love you. I love what you do. Stay true to that. I think that the offensive minds in the NFL really like Mayfield, whether it's Adam Gase with the Dolphins. I've heard that Sean Payton with the Saints loves him, even though obviously he's got Drew Brees locked up for another couple years. So personally, I think that the more we hear of these offensive minds heaping praise on Baker Mayfield, the more I think that some coach or GM somewhere will say, we're going to go up and get him. Interestingly enough, by the way, I hear that John Elway will be here today on the first day of free agency. I mean, that to me says the Denver Broncos are pretty serious about this guy too. So it'll be very interesting to see what teams are sending what part of their brass to Baker Mayfield's Pro Day on the first day of free agency. That'll give us a good indication of how serious teams are.
Jeff Darlington with a nugget right there. That's a good nugget because a lot of people were thinking,
which one?
The John Elway situation. That's very interesting because obviously the Case Keenum thing is it looks like it's a 1-year deal, right? Isn't that what it is? It's a 1-year deal at $18 million. They still have to be in play. The question then becomes, if you're the Broncos, don't you want to try and address that offensive line as quickly as possible with the 5th overall pick? Or do you say we have our bridge quarterback and then we're going to take our future quarterback at 5?
I don't know. I love the idea of, I'm sure John Elway loves Baker Mayfield's attitude. That's the one thing that some of these brash coaches, brash GMs like an Elway love about Baker. And I'm sure they're like looking at this guy saying, man, if I could find a way to get him, it'd be very interesting to see if the Broncos made that move. And I don't think that there's any team, if you really look across the landscape of the NFL, most teams are making moves in free agency to have a quarterback regardless of whether they draft one. So, I mean, a lot of these teams recognize that you can't go into the draft with no plan at the position at all. You got to have something in free agency, and then you address it in the draft. But yeah, if it's Case Keenum and Baker Mayfield going into camp for the Denver Broncos, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, Jeff, the Denver Broncos settled on Case Keenum in free agency as their quarterback for this season. That was plan B because Kirk Cousins decided he's going to go elsewhere. He's expected to sign a 3-year, $84 million deal with the Minnesota Vikings today, fully guaranteed. What is that going to do for quarterback contracts moving forward and for NFL players in general moving forward?
So I personally subscribe to the belief that Kirk Cousins just had the perfect storm in terms of his career. coming out behind RG3, and quarterback not getting exposed at all in his first few years and kind of just having his stock continually rising as just the guy behind the scenes. That was an advantage for him. And then playing under the tag for a couple years. Last year, if Kirk Cousins struggled, now if he had a disastrous season, maybe we're having a different conversation, but he knew going into that season, if he had struggled, it was still going to be perfectly excused by the fact that Sean McVay was gone, Deshaun Jackson was gone, Pierre Garçon was gone. So all of a sudden, he's going to be in a position that he can then excuse that. Some coach is going to take a chance on him, and I think ultimately he still would have gotten paid.
Jeff Darlington with us. He's in Norman, Oklahoma for Baker Mayfield's Pro Day.
I think I lost you guys.
You hear me now? I feel like a telephone commercial. Can you hear me now, Jeff? Hefe? Jeff? My man?
I think I lost you guys.
All right. Well, we'll try and reestablish.
You're back. You're back, Trey. I got you now.
I was never really gone. I just want you to know that. I was here the whole time.
Okay.
I was here the whole time. So you're talking about Kirk Cousins and his kick at the can. Right now, the standard is being set by Sam Bradford, $134 million potentially.
I know, I love
and he's
that.
never had more than 7 wins in a season. The other issue that we're looking at here is Aaron Rodgers. Obviously, he's got to be sitting there thinking, 31 million, 32 million, 33 million, 34 million, 35 million. How much is he enjoying drafting off these contracts being signed for ridiculous amounts of money to quarterbacks who have not nearly accomplished what he's accomplished?
It's so funny because then you look at Drew Brees, who I'm not trying to compare Drew Brees at this point in his career to Aaron Rodgers, because Rodgers basically could get, in my opinion, whatever he wants. But when you have guys like Brady and Brees seemingly giving up money that they could get to stay with their team, it's kind of just a weird scenario. And again, part of the reason why Kirk Cousins, I believe, was able to get so much money, because the loyalty factor isn't there. So will Rodgers still take $32 million like he easily could probably get on the open market? I don't think he'll wind up doing that, but certainly he's got to know that he's in the driver's seat in terms of every bit of leverage when we look at other contracts around the league.
Jeff, Drew Brees signed a contract yesterday, 2 years, $50 million down in New Orleans, and everybody was assuming that this was a done deal. What I want to know is, why did it take so long to get done?
I don't know. They seem to work best under deadlines. I guess the whole NFL does, but this was a scenario where both sides all along said that they were ultimately going to get this done, to the point where I was talking to some teams that were quarterback-needy teams that weren't even messing with it. They weren't even calling Drew Brees' agent to discuss it because they just assumed that he was staying with the New Orleans Saints. If I was Drew Brees, though, I would have at least gotten guaranteed money through 2 years. It seemed like he had that leverage in the bag. You might as well just get it all guaranteed if this is sort of the trend for quarterbacks right now. I know it's not that easy, but if I was Brees, I probably would have said, that's fine. These numbers are fine, but I want it all right now.
Jeff Darlington with us. He's our Florida guy, NFL reporter extraordinaire. But more importantly, Tiger winning this week at Bay Hill, Jeff?
Man, absolutely, Trey. We'll be watching. Trey, you've really invigorated me in my approach toward Tiger Woods. I'm an apologist for sure, but it's nice to know that you too are on this bandwagon with me, and that we can ride or die together.
Been there a while. It is interesting. By the way, Justin Ray, who works for the Golf Channel, used to work for us at ESPN, put out the greatest stat in the world. I may get the numbers wrong, but when Phil won the World Golf Championship in Mexico, it 1,687 days between his last win and his first win. Should Tiger win on Sunday? Wow. It'll be 1,687 days between his last win and his next win will be at Bay Hill. That was one of the greatest nuggets of all
Tiger
time.
And Phil, man.
I am big on the nuggets.
That is great. He's back, though, Trey.
Yeah, we'll see.
I got to tell you, that swing speed, man, he's back. The swing speed is everything to me.
Ripping it at 129 miles an hour, which was the fastest, or 124. Man. I can't remember, one of the fastest ones on tour. Jeff, you're good. We'll talk to you later.
Trey, thank you. Appreciate it, man.
You got it, pal. And we're glad we're back with Jeff.